Blessed good afternoon to each and everyone. Welcome to Facts Not Fiction. Let me welcome each and every one of you on our live stream on the World Wide Web, on our social media platform. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Before I begin my discourse tonight, it seems as though every day that comes and every day that leaves, things seems to be getting worse. And this is because, ladies and gentlemen, that there is a breakdown of law and order. When there is a breakdown of law and order in a society, each day that comes, there is a price that goes with it. The scenes like there is no end to what is happening. And as we go through the dailies and we scroll on social media, RIP seems to be a common encryption of our everyday life. It seems as though that as life takes its course on a daily basis, is chaos and more chaos. And people seems as though that they are growing accustomed to the negative impact that spreads itself across the diaspora. But if we should take some time and check and go back into our historical evidence, we will acknowledge and we will show some level of appreciation to know that this did not just started overnight. But the historical data will show that you and I is also responsible. We must take some level of blame. Appreciation to know that this. Let me just get this everything here low down so I would not be disturbed as I go forward. Right, we seems to be all right here now. We must recognize that we ought to take some level of blame, ladies and gentlemen, because we have looked into our history books and we have seen what governments should and should not do. We could look into our history books And we would be able to recognize the blunders, the mayhem, when we fail to hold governments accountable. A matter of fact, some of us doesn't even hold our household accountable, much less those that we have vested, those who have vested authority because of our votes. But when we look at all of this, ladies and gentlemen, how could it be summed up? Can we just simply look into our history and say, well, mistakes were made, and out of those mistakes, life goes on as normal? The answer to that is no. When we have that level of interference in government and governance, what happens? There is a consequence. There's a fruit, there's a tree that has been planted. And when that tree make root, ladies and gentlemen, we have the fruits of the tree that was sown by the politicians. And today in our society, we are reaping the fruits of the tree that you and I allow politicians to sow in our country. And as a result of that, we now face with mayhem. We are faced with sorrow. We are faced with pain. And the agony continues. Now, where am I going? Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to examine. I want you to examine the difference with democracy and de-mockery. I want you to examine the difference between democracy and de-mockery. And when we conclude here this afternoon, I want you to be the judge. You must be the judge. But not just be the judge, but you must hold yourself accountable. If there is changes to be made in this country, you must hold yourself accountable. We have seen in our country over the past years, we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, the way in which the government under Keith Christopher Rowley had flaunt, showed disregard and disrespect for what we considered to be a sacred document, that is widely known as the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. We have seen, ladies and gentlemen, where total disregard, disrespect was shown to that piece of document that set the fundamental path for citizens of this country to live by. When you erode the fundamental principles of the Constitution, when you disregard the fundamental principles of that document, when you show disrespect, and when you show it with a bold face, when you could stand up to the world and say, I was the man, when you could cause the collapse of every independent institution, when you can interfere with the sacredness of the presidency according to the document which we hold in high esteem, when you could break up and mash up and destroy a whole organization, when you could reverse the merit list to have your way, to destroy one individual. Today, we are faced with the calamity. Today, we are feeling the pain and agony as a result of no respect, regard for the rule of law. By circumventing the act, the principle of a document. Today, we are faced with the agony, and on top of that, Keith Christopher Rowley stood up and said, I am the man. I want to ask you tonight, is that democracy or is that de-mockery? We have seen, ladies and gentlemen, in this country, according to the Constitution, according to the sacred document, we have seen where bills in our parliament that according to that document had requires, in some cases, three-fifths majority, bills that needed special amount of votes. We have seen this government show no respect for law and order, show no respect for the sacred document, and water down those bills, bring them to parliament with a simple majority to have its way. Is it democracy or is it de-mockery? We have seen, ladies and gentlemen, where a Queen's Council or a King's Council were involved in a high-level profile corruption matter. We have seen where an attorney general went outside of his purview, outside of his jurisdiction, enter into another terrain, the terrain of the director of public prosecution, and prepare a document that will exempt that individual on a number of issues that require prison time. And to the end of the day, after all that was made public, after all that was made known to all of us, to the end of the day, absolutely nothing came out of that whole Nelson fiasco. Is it democracy or is it de-mockery? We have seen all level of interference with our document that we call the Constitution. Level of interference, left, right, center, on top, below, sideways, front, back, all levels. And yet today, we have seen absolutely nothing, coming out of all those breaches of our Constitution. And yet people in this country have the audacity to speak about we living in a democratic country. Are we living in a democratic country or are we living in a de-mockery country? You see, sometimes we allow ourselves to be carried away by fair speeches and fancy talk. And when we allow ourselves to be drawn away, and when we are lazy to spend some time to look after the country interests, and when we allow politicians to become law unto themselves, and when we allow politicians to build an empire, to build a dynasty, And when we allow politicians to believe that all within their precincts of power, it must be by succession. When we allow politicians to utilize all level of shenanigans, and we do absolutely nothing about it, then we are contributing to be living in this de-mockery that we call democracy. I, ladies and gentlemen, took a black coffin and I took it to the house of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And on that coffin, you will see the words, "Democracy dead." And that was to symbolize the death of our democracy in this country by a government that sits in office, a government that you support. I took that said coffin in front of the parliament with the words, "Democracy dead." And I did that, ladies and gentlemen, not because I want to be famous. I did it to show this country that if we do not stand up against these tyrants, against people who believe that the empire belongs to them, people who believe that they could just break the constitution of our country and think that they could get away with it, I stopped by to let you know that you would not get away once there is breath and blood in this body. I will stand up and fight any organization, any government, any group that has a document that is called a constitution and believe because of their own personal interests that they could do what they want and that they could use what they want and that they could say what they want. I want to let you know tonight that I will stand against any government. I will stand against any opposition. I will stand against any group in this country who believes that they can do what they want and that they can be above the document that controls this country. I am prepared to act. You see, democracy, ladies and gentlemen, means participation. It means participation. That simply means to allow people to have a voice. That is what democracy means. Democracy also means, ladies and gentlemen, equality. It means that people are treated equally. Democracy also means accountability. It means accountability. And that tells you that politicians are accountable to the people. Democracy also means transparency. That is to say that we must know if good decisions are being made in the interests of we the voters. Democracy also means having the control over abuse of power. We must ensure that the rule of law is obeyed. Democracy also means human rights. What does that tell you? We must be free to express. We must be free to demand. And we must be free to ensure that obedience to the document is there. Democracy also means free and fair elections. Free and fair elections. You know what that means? That also means that accurate information must be given to us, the voters. Accurate information. Outside of the aforementioned, which I just touched on a few, outside of allowing us to participate, outside of proper accountability and unity, outside of transparency, outside of human rights, and outside of free and fair election, what we have is tyrants. That is what we have. When individuals will utilize the document that ought to govern, when they utilize that document in order to stay in power, there is nothing but democracy. There is nothing, but de-mockery that replaces democracy. We have allowed people to replace democracy with de-mockery in this country for too long. A matter of fact, we have too much Houdini. We have too much Harry Houdini in this country. That is what we have. We have allowed people to do what they want. And we sit idly by and allow it to happen. And when the consequence come before us, we turn around and blame each other. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Let me get on to some brass tacks here now. Why it is that all of us speaks of democracy? Why all of us speak about democracy? And once an election is called, once there's rumors of an election, all hell break loose. We speak about democracy, and when an election is called, we go down to the pit. We go down in the pit, and we try our best to pull out the rotten guts from down in the pit and try to paint another human being with it. When an election is called, General, you seldom hear about policies. You seldom hear about how we will revitalize and regenerate the economy. You seldom hear about what would be here to make your life better. You hardly hear about how we will deal with the infrastructural aspect. You hardly hear about that. But you know what you hear about? You hear that he was and she was, and he did and she did. That is how we allow the thing to go from a general standpoint. When we talk about internal election, well, then the real monsters pop up the head. When we speak about an internal election, that is where the monster pop up the head. That is where the old dirty, stinking, filthy rags will come out. And let me tell you something. When you don't have no baggage, they try to create and paint a baggage for you. That is how the game go. So let me deal with that now. Let us deal with that now. I have seen internal election in the PNM. As of recently. And you know what we're hearing? We're hearing this one going up against Rowley, that one going up against Rowley. We hear this one up in the east challenging Rowley, we hear that one in the south challenging Rowley. Or they hear anything else? Did you people hear anything else? You know what we were saying in the grapevine? We were hearing Rowley call this one and buff him. Rowley call this one and say we go expose you. Rowley call all that we hear in the grapevine, you know. But not one day we heard anything close to some of the things I hear last night. Let me say it again in case you miss it. Not one day I hear anything close to some of the things that I heard last night. That is what I want to talk about now. All through the grapevine we hear Rowley this, Rowley that, Rowley the other. But that is all. That is all. But all in a sudden, the NATEX election is due in June of this year. And I don't start to hear all the rotten bunch of grapes already. I don't hear the rotten bunch of grapes already. That is what I'm hearing. And then we talk about democracy. We talking about democracy. We want to kill the PNM for democracy. We want to mash up the PNM for democracy. But when it comes to democracy in our own house, it is the mockery. It is the mockery. We speak democracy. We look at the Constitution. Before I get into Section 18, we look at the Constitution. And the Constitution make way for Victor Roberts to challenge any position. But you know what? Let Victor Roberts get up in the morning and decide at the next NATEX election, which is due in June, that Victor Roberts going to contest a position. And you will hear the most nasty, dirty, stinking, whatever else you want to add in there about Victor Roberts. But it's democracy. It is democracy. But let Victor Roberts decide he's going for a position. And you will hear all hell break loose. Victor this, Victor that, Victor the other, Victor now come, Victor now come, Victor wasn't there all the time, Victor whatever. All that you're going on here. I saw an article recently on the papers. About who work hard to build this party and who in the party 30 plus years. And how people now come. And how people wanted this and people wanted that. And people want to be the other. All that I read on the papers, you know. I ain't saying nothing here that all ain't read too. I ain't saying nothing here that all ain't read too. And then you will hear who ambition supersede this and who ambition that and who this and who that. All that packer dotish hogwash you will hear. But yet still with the same mouth they tell you about democracy. With the same mouth they will tell you democracy. But with the same mouth, they will cut down or chop down and assassinate the character of anybody. Anybody who try to oppose them. Anybody who use the democratic process to contest. They will chop you down to pieces and yet still speak democracy. That is the mockery in the highest order. That is what it is. And I will stand up against that. And I will speak out against that. And nobody will muzzle me not to speak against it. Because democracy has some principles. Democracy has some guidelines. You go back and look at the 14 principles of democracy. And you will see what it established. You will see the fundamental principles that must be adhered to in order for it to be democratic. But some people believe that it's a dynasty, that it's their own, that nobody must venture to improve. When an election is called and there is contestants, the reason why people contest is because people believe that they could bring a better standard as to what exists. That should be the pure intention. That should be, I have looked at past elections and I have seen war amongst ourselves. Go back there, the record is there, are talking about brutal war. And I always look at that. And I always see the distastefulness by some people who will crave for power. And some people who will want to hold on to power. They will stop at nothing. They don't care who get destroyed in the mix, you know. They don't care what fall apart in the mix. They don't care who benefit in the mix, you know. Once they could benefit, they don't care about nobody else. That is what I have seen. We have a NATEX election that is due. And I already seen war drums beaten. People don't even have drums. They're borrowing a drum to beat. Who do have war drum? Borrowing a drum just to beat. That is democracy. What is the purpose of a NATEX election? A NATEX election is simply to give the membership the opportunity to select who they believe is the best candidates to get into government. That is simple. That is what it is. But all the shenanigans spewing out left, right, and center. People so good that them in Rowley mind to know when an election going on call. That is how good the Houdini is. That is why I mentioned Harry Houdini. That is how good they is. They could get into Rowley mine. An election that is due in 2025. They could get into Keith Rowley mine to know that an election going on call in 2024. That is how good they are. That is how good they are. So it's all kind of games that start to play. What should one be afraid of? What should one be afraid of? This is us, the UNC. This is us seeking to put the best team. This is us, the voters, who will decide who we believe is the best team. This is not a one-man vote, that one man say it all and ends it all. The membership, they have the right, they have the constitutional right to stand up and to vote and to select who they want to lead the next latex. We're talking about a latex election, but everybody jumping in. One party, one leader. One party, one leader. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, leader. Natex election is not a leadership election. Don't try to fool the population. Natex election have nothing to do with the leadership election. Absolutely nothing. But everybody painting this big picture. This big picture being painted. What all they believe? The population dumb? Or they believe that the voting base in the UNC, they're not educated enough to understand what is happening? That is what some all they believe. Some all they believe that all they can rap the base song on their finger. Some all they believe that all they own the base. That is what all they believe. This is a democratic process. This is a democratic process. And one should have nothing to fear. Once you know you're doing a good job as a member of NATEX, you don't have nothing to fear. You should be happy to go back to the polls. Because once you're doing a good job, you're certain that the voters are going to put you back there. So what's the issue? All this buff and weave and like we in some big boxing match and ducking and uppercut and so on and so on. I will deal with all that as we go along, you know. But I want to say that the Constitution must be adhered to. That is my position. I don't care who don't like it. That is a business. The Constitution, Section 18 of the Constitution, it is there. And it is there for a purpose. It is there for a reason. And we must not be like the PNM. We cannot be like the PNM. We can condone the wrong that the PNM did in relation to the Constitution. We speak out against that wrong. And if we speak out against that wrong, then we must not, we cannot be endeavoring to do the same thing by circumventing what the document say. We have to hold the document up and we have to hold the document proud. That is the reality. The PNM mash up this country because they breach every aspect of the Constitution over the years. They do what they want. We suffering today because of the breaches of the Constitution under the PNM. We're going through hell in this country as a result of the breaches and the disrespect to the Constitution under the People's National Movement. You think I will sit down and be a part? You think I will lie down and be a part? You think I will stoop down and be a part of any breaching of any constitution that governs us? Not Victor Roberts. Not Victor Roberts. My message to you, the country today, is all of us have to stand up for what is right. All of us must ensure that the documents that govern our organization, whether it be a basketball team, a cricket team, the UNC, the PNM, a community group, all of us must stand up and start the conversation by obeying the document that governs our group, our party, or our country. We have to stand up for that. You see, we can no longer allow it to be same old, same old. You feeling the pain, you know? Every one of you feeling the pain, you know? And if you don't believe me, go and pull your sugar pan. Pull your milk pan. Everybody feeling the pain. Everybody feeling the agony. So it have to stop somewhere. You're getting into government, let us get into government clean. You're getting into government, let us get into government clean. Be obedient to the rule of law. That is what we need to do. And there are some things that I had to deal with, but it's not for this platform. There are some things that I am not supporting, but it's not for this platform. That will be for another platform. There are some things that I'm not supporting. I don't pelt stone and put my hand behind my back, you know. Since I'm growing up, I never pelt a stone and hide my hand. If I pelt a stone and a windscreen break, rest assured, I owning up to it. I say, yes, I pelt the stone. I pelt it. And I stand the consequence for pelting it. So this is nothing to me. This is nothing to me. I got a phone call a couple of days ago. A 42-minute phone call. 42 minutes phone call. But nothing changed. And I made it quite clear. When I pelt a stone, rest assured is I pelt it. I don't have to pelt a stone and blame somebody else. In the earlies, let me draw back your mind. Let me stretch back your recollection. Right on this table, right on this platform, right in this studio, I make it clear I am not supporting no stab in the back politics. I'm not supporting no Kobo politics. Right here I said that. And I tell you, I am supporting democracy. I tell you that. Right here. And I tell all of them who waiting like Kobo, like scavenger, hoping that something wrong happened to the leader. Half of them, you know, don't get tied up, you know. Who waiting like scavenger, who was calling me and telling me whose side I on. You remember we had those discussions here? Roberts, whose side you on? Talk now, you know, whose side? And I stand up here and maintain that Kamla Prasad Bisesa is the leader. And I'm not supporting no stab in the back. I'm not supporting no Kobo politics. Right here I said it. And right here I stand by it. You know what I tell them? When an election is called, put all your hat in the ring. That is what I said here. When the election is due, put all your hat in the ring. That is what I tell people. And I am not going back on that. I am not reneging on that. So all they do is call me and ask me nothing. All they do is call me nothing. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. Election is due in June. Two things happen. The election must be called. One, And all who feel the big and bad and strong, put all your hat in the ring. That is what it is about. Put all your hat in the ring. Convince the membership. Convince the membership why they must vote for all you. That is what all you have to do. That is how we are to go forward. The membership must have a say in this party. I heard the leader talk recently about who was treated like sheep. I heard all that. I ain't no goat. I is a Capricorn, yes, let me tell you that. I is a Capricorn. Capricorn is me. But I ain't no goat. So you can't put no rope around my neck and pull me like a goat. And I ain't no sheep neither. You can't get me to walk to the slaughter without making noise. So that is my position. I made it quite clear. I say it in the earlies, I say it again. An election is due, the election must be called. That is democracy. I don't care who feel Rowley call an election this year or Rowley call an election next month. Election is due in June. The election call, Rowley call a snap election, we could put it off. But don't give me the shenanigans. Don't give me the shenanigans at all about Rowley calling the election and it is this year and that year. The election is constitutionally due in 2025. So don't try to put wool over my eye. Don't try to hoodwink me because I don't take that. All who feel the big and bad, put their hat in the ring. Put your hat in the ring. It is the membership to decide. That is what it is. It mustn't be a few shotgun people who believe that they have something to lose. Alright? I ain't going down that road. When time for me to talk that, I go talk that, and I know exactly which part to talk that. So I ain't going down that road. But it ain't no shotgun politics here. It's democracy, it's a process. Section 18 of the Constitution is clear. And I am going to stand up for that. Make no doubts about it. I am going to stand up for that. So I rest my case tonight for now. All right? Have a good night. I finish.